My name is Ailany, and if you had told me 2 years ago that my own sister would ban me from her housewarming party, the house I secretly helped her buy, I would have laughed. Back then, family still meant something to me, but betrayal, I've learned, doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you trust most, the ones who know exactly where to stab. It started 3 months ago with a group text. My phone buzzed over breakfast, and my heart lifted when I saw the words, "Big news. Everyone's invited to our housewarming." Everyone, except me. There were 10 names tagged in the message: mom, dad, cousins, even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. But not mine. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I even laughed. Then I noticed my younger sister's next message: "Sorry. Forgot to mention, Ailany, please don't come until you've apologized. We'll talk after the party." Apologize? For what? I stared at the screen, my cereal turning to mush. My hands trembled, not out of anger yet, but confusion. Mom texted privately a few minutes later, "Sweetheart, just let it go this time. Don't ruin the event. You know how emotional your sister gets." That one message broke something in me. Because I did know how emotional my sister, Clara, could get, and how she'd learned to weaponize those emotions since childhood. She was the golden one, pretty, social, effortlessly adored. I was the quieter sister, the planner, the fixer, the one who handled crises no one else wanted to face. When Dad lost his job, I was the one who found a way to refinance the house. When Mom fell ill, I paid for her treatment. And when Clara wanted her dream home, I didn't hesitate to help. She had just gotten engaged then, drowning in bills, her credit a mess. She cried over wine one night about losing the house she wanted. So I stepped in, like always, and quietly took out a second personal loan. That dream home? I paid for it. Every closing cost, down payment, insurance premium, covered under my name. But no one knew, because she begged me to keep it secret. "I don't want people thinking I needed help," she said. "Of course," I replied. "I just want you to be happy." And now? She was banning me from celebrating the house I'd built her life on. That night, I sat on my porch watching the lights of the city flicker beneath a bruised sky. I told myself to be calm, to stay silent, like always. But silence had become a prison, and Clara had built the walls herself. The next morning, I saw photos on social media. Everyone smiling, wine glasses raised. Clara glowing in a white sundress, holding a "welcome home" sign. Even Mom was there, her arm wrapped around Clara like nothing was wrong. Not one person noticed I wasn't in the frame. Not one person asked where I was. That's when something inside me shifted. If they wanted to erase me, fine. But I had receipts, literal ones. And I was done being their silent backbone. They thought banning me was the end of the story. It was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. My mind replayed every sacrifice, every favor, that somehow turned into a lifelong obligation. Clara's voice echoed in my head from years ago: "You're so good with money, Ailany. I'd be lost without you." That was her favorite line. It sounded like gratitude, but it was manipulation wrapped in sweetness. I opened my laptop and pulled up my folders. I had kept everything, every transfer, loan agreement, email, and even her text messages about borrowing just for now. It started with $800 for a security deposit. Then $3,200 for wedding catering. Then $18,000 for a down payment, just until she could repay. But she never did. Over the years, it had grown to $67,000. All quietly paid, never acknowledged, never mentioned. I scrolled through the receipts, each one a small piece of my self-respect chipped away. I had covered her property tax, her insurance, and even the mortgage payments when she forgot. 6 years. 6 years of letting her live her dream while I paid off loans, skipped vacations, and turned down my own apartment upgrade because family comes first. Family. The word felt dirty now. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house. Mom was baking, humming some old tune that used to make me feel safe. Dad was on the porch, reading. For a second, it felt normal. Then Mom turned and said, "Clara told us she hopes you'll apologize soon. She doesn't want this to drag out." I froze mid-step. "Apologize for what?" "You embarrassed her," she said softly. "At dinner last month. You told her to get a real job in front of her friends." I blinked. That wasn't an insult. She literally said she was quitting her job to start a vision board consultancy. I just asked if she had clients. Mom frowned. "You know how sensitive she is." I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "So she bans me from her housewarming because I asked a question?" Dad looked up finally, sighing. "Just let her have her moment, Ailany. She's been through a lot." That line. She's been through a lot. They'd been saying it for years. When Clara crashed her car and blamed the brakes. When she stole money from Mom's purse by accident. When she maxed out a joint credit card I was stupid enough to co-sign. She's been through a lot. No one ever asked what I'd been through. When I left that day, I made a decision. Not a dramatic one, a quiet, deliberate choice. I was done explaining. Done pleading. Done being the family accountant and emotional punching bag. If they wanted to see what life looked like without me, I'd give them a front row seat. So I printed every document. Every transaction. I highlighted her name beside mine, the shared mortgage account, the auto debits from my checking. I put them neatly in a binder labeled, Clara's house, the real owner. Then, I waited out a week later, the text came, hey, can you please Venmo me $900? We're short this month, and you know how mortgage penalties are. I smiled. For the first time in years, I didn't send money. Instead, I replied, I think you should check your email. Because attached to that email was something Clara would never forget, every receipt, every wire, every proof of how her perfect life existed only because of me. And that email would be the spark that burned the illusion down. The next morning, I watched my phone like a hawk. I knew the moment Clara opened that email, the house of cards would begin to shake. Within 2 hours, my inbox exploded. What is this? How dare you? You're crazy. Clara's messages were frantic, all caps, punctuated by multiple question marks. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The proof was irrefutable. By that afternoon, she showed up at my apartment. She was a whirlwind of fury and embarrassment, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. She practically screamed before she even stepped inside, you're insane. How could you, how dare you, send me this? Everyone will see. I closed my laptop gently and looked her in the eye. Calm, controlled. Everyone will see. Everyone's already seen it. Her face went pale. Mom and Dad haven't, they know, I interrupted. And so does your fiancé. And so does your realtor. And yes? The whole damn neighborhood email list got a copy. Her hand trembled as she raised it to slap me. I grabbed at Ailany, this isn't funny. She shrieked. I let her pull away and collapse into the couch, finally realizing that she couldn't yell her way out of this. Not anymore funny? I echoed softly. You've spent years pretending you earned this life on your own. 6 years, Clara. 6 years. Every mortgage payment, every insurance bill, every little thing? Paid by me. And now? Everyone knows. You can't undo it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but not shame, fear. She was terrified of losing the facade she'd built. By that evening, the fallout had begun. Our parents, still trying to protect Clara, called me. Ailany, maybe we should talk, Dad said. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. You knew. You let it happen. You let her erase me while I covered everything. Mom pleaded, but I cut her off. The quiet strength that had been simmering inside me for years finally roared. I didn't want anyone to see this, but you all gave me no choice. Clara's perfect life? Built on lies. Built on my money. Built on my sacrifice. And now it's out in the open. The next day, Clara's housewarming event was chaos. The decorations looked the same, but the smiles were forced, brittle. Cousins whispered as they looked at the emails they'd received, passing the binder from hand to hand. Friends asked awkward questions. Even the neighbors, curious about the lavish housewarming, could sense something was off. She tried to salvage the event, plastering on a smile, making jokes, pouring wine, but the illusion had cracked. Everyone knew. Everyone had receipts. Everyone understood the truth. And as I stood outside her front door, watching the perfect party unravel from the sidewalk, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, liberation. No one would ever doubt me again. Not my parents. Not my sister. Not even the world that watched her pretend she had it all together. The next few days were electric. Clara was frantic, walking on eggshells, constantly checking her emails and phone. Every time she tried to smile in public, it faltered. Every conversation with relatives became a minefield. And I watched from the sidelines, calm, collected, and finally free from the burden of being the invisible caretaker. I decided to escalate. It wasn't about humiliation anymore, it was about justice. First, I called the mortgage company. With all the documentation in hand, I formally requested they acknowledge that I had been the primary funder of the mortgage for the past 6 years. They confirmed the payments, the loans, everything. Clara could no longer claim ownership without publicly acknowledging my contributions. Then I did something even bolder. I sent a copy of the binder to the family group chat, but this time with a short, sharp message. For anyone wondering who actually made Clara's dream home possible, here's the truth. You might want to keep this in mind before praising her. The group chat went silent for nearly 20 minutes. Then the notifications blew up. Cousins, aunts, uncles, even distant relatives were responding, shock, disbelief, and whispered acknowledgement. Clara's fiancé called me next, furious. Ailany, this isn't helping anyone. You're ruining everything. I leaned back in my chair, sipping coffee. On the contrary, I said. I'm showing everyone the truth. Clara needed to learn that actions have consequences. And yes, this includes you. The icing on the cake came a week later. Clara's social media was flooded with messages from friends and neighbors congratulating her housewarming without realizing she hadn't funded any of it herself. When she tried to post a celebratory photo, someone tagged me, highlighting my role in funding the house. She panicked. She begged me privately, Ailany, please? Don't ruin me completely. I'll apologize. Anything you want. I'll do it. I smiled. Finally, she understood that apologies alone wouldn't fix what she'd broken. Years of lies, manipulation, and disrespect didn't vanish with a single text. It's too late for just an apology, Clara, I replied. You had 6 years to acknowledge me, and you chose silence. You wanted me invisible? Well, now the world can see exactly who you are, and who actually made your life possible. By the end of that week, Clara's perfect facade had completely crumbled. Invitations she sent were ignored. Family members whispered when she entered rooms. Even mom and dad stopped acting like nothing had happened. And me? I finally felt lighter than I had in years. I wasn't just reclaiming money, I was reclaiming respect, dignity, and my place in the family. It wasn't malicious revenge for its own sake. It was exposure, empowerment, and a lesson long overdue. The following weekend, Clara attempted one last-ditch effort to regain control. She threw a small reconciliation brunch at her house, thinking she could smooth things over with forced smiles and empty apologies. I arrived, but not to beg or accept her theatrics. I walked in confidently, dressed sharply, holding nothing but my phone and a small stack of receipts. Every eye in the room followed me. The air was thick with tension. Ailany. Clara started, her voice trembling. Don't, I interrupted softly but firmly. I'm here to witness, not forgive. I placed the receipts on the table, carefully organized and highlighted, so everyone could see the truth. Every dollar I had spent, every mortgage payment, every hidden gift over 6 years. Relatives gasped. Some whispered. Others looked at Clara with disbelief. Mom's voice broke the silence. Ailany? All this time? You really did everything? I nodded. Yes. I did it because I loved my family. Because I believed in supporting each other. But I also believed in being acknowledged. And 6 years of being erased is enough. Clara's face turned red. She tried to speak, but no words came out. The room was filled with the quiet weight of truth, the kind that can't be sugar-coated or ignored. Then I said the words that cemented my victory. I will not apologize for standing up for myself. I will not be invisible anymore. If anyone wants to celebrate, they will do it with honesty, or not at all. The atmosphere shifted. For the first time, the family truly saw me, not just as the helper, the quiet supporter, or the invisible sister, but as a person who demanded respect. By the end of the brunch, Clara retreated to her room. Mom and dad approached me cautiously, finally acknowledging my role in their lives. Even a few cousins whispered, we never knew. I smiled. Because the truth had finally taken its place, and with it, my dignity. I hadn't just exposed a lie. I had reclaimed myself. That night, I sat on my balcony, looking at the city lights twinkling below. The weight of years lifted. I realized something powerful. Revenge isn't just about proving someone wrong, it's about proving yourself right. And in doing so, nothing, and no one, could ever erase you again. Weeks passed after the brunch, and for the first time in my adult life, I stopped waiting for anyone's validation. The silence from my family wasn't punishment, it was peace. Clara had gone quiet on social media. Her posts disappeared one by one. The perfect life she'd curated had cracked wide open, and she couldn't bear the echo of whispers. Her fiancé eventually left too, tired of the drama and the truth that her success was a borrowed illusion. As for me? I focused on rebuilding the life I'd sacrificed. I sold my car, paid off the remaining loan balance from those years of secret funding, and finally started the dream I'd postponed, opening my own small interior design studio. Ironically, all those years helping Clara decorate her home had taught me more than any class ever could. I named it Ailany and Company, simple, strong, and personal. My first clients came from referrals, friends of friends who'd heard the story. Not the gossip version, but the one about the woman who finally stood up for herself and rebuilt her life from truth. One evening, Mom came by the studio. Her hair had grayed a little more, her tone softer than I'd heard in years. You look happy, she said quietly. I smiled. I am. She hesitated, eyes glistening. Clara's struggling. She's different now. Maybe she learned something. I paused, then nodded. Maybe. But I've learned something too. Love without respect isn't love at all. She nodded, and for the first time, there was no argument, just understanding. Months later, I received a letter. Handwritten. From Clara. I know I can't undo what I did. I thought pretending made me stronger, but it only made me hollow. I'm sorry, not just for banning you, but for forgetting who you were to me. I hope one day, when you look at the house, you remember not what it cost, but what it taught both of us. I read it twice, folded it neatly, and placed it in a drawer. Not as forgiveness, but as closure. Because revenge had given me justice, but peace came from letting go. And when I walked past Clara's old house months later, I didn't feel anger anymore. Just gratitude. It had cost me $67,000 to learn the most valuable lesson of my life, that boundaries are worth more than blood. That self-respect is the only investment that never loses value. And that sometimes, to rebuild yourself, you have to first burn down the illusion. A year later, life looked completely different. My studio, Ailany and Company, was thriving beyond anything I'd dared to imagine. Clients filled my calendar months in advance. My designs were featured in a local magazine under the headline, From Silent Supporter to Self-Made Success. Every word of that title felt poetic, like life had finally written me a fair ending. But one autumn morning, as I sipped my coffee and flipped through the magazine, my phone buzzed. The name on the screen froze me for a second. To Clara. After months of distance, there she was again, but her tone this time wasn't pride or anger, it was humility. Hey, she said quietly when I picked up. Can I stop by? I won't stay long. I hesitated, then agreed. She arrived half an hour later, looking different. Simpler. No designer bag, no manicured hands, just Clara, stripped of the armor she used to hide behind. She stood in my studio, glancing around at the framed photos, color swatches, and little plants in white ceramic pots. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "You built this? All by yourself?" I nodded. "Yes, I did." She exhaled. "I wanted to see you because I'm moving. Selling the house." I raised an eyebrow. "The house I paid for?" She nodded, guilt flooding her eyes. "Yeah, that one. I can't live there anymore. It feels like a monument to who I used to be." I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. "I know I can't erase what I did," she continued. "But I'm giving you half of whatever I make from the sale. It's yours, really." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. I'd dreamed of repayment before, but now, standing here, I realized it wasn't about money anymore. It was about acknowledgement, something she'd finally given me, even if it came late. I smiled faintly. "Keep it. You'll need it to start over." She looked stunned. "You don't want it?" I shook my head. "No. I already got what I needed, my peace." She blinked rapidly, tears gathering. Then, for the first time since we were kids, she hugged me. A real hug. No manipulation, no performance. Just two sisters, finally understanding each other. When she left, the studio felt lighter, like something unspoken had been set free. Later that night, I looked around at the space I had built, every plant, every color choice, every client testimonial on the wall. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was rebirth. I realized then that life had quietly handed me something much greater than retribution, a full circle moment. Because sometimes, justice isn't loud. It's quiet. It's peace after the storm. It's standing in your own space, surrounded by proof that you were always enough. It's been 1 year since the day I finally stopped apologizing for my existence. 1 year since I was banned from my sister's housewarming, the house I quietly paid 4.1 years since I stopped living for other people's comfort and started living for my own peace. Sometimes, when I close the studio late at night and the city hums softly outside, I think about the old version of me, the Ailany who said yes even when she wanted to scream no, the one who thought love meant sacrifice, the one who mistook silence for strength. So tonight, I write to her. "Dear Ailany, you did it. You survived the guilt, the manipulation, and the heartbreak that came from being invisible in your own story. You learned that love doesn't mean erasing yourself. You gave too much, but instead of breaking, you built something out of the wreckage, yourself. You turned debt into dignity, pain into power, betrayal into clarity. And now, when people see you, they don't see a shadow in the background. They see a woman who stood alone and still didn't crumble. So here's your reminder, you owe no one your silence. You owe no one your peace. You are not defined by the love you gave to people who couldn't return it. You are defined by how you rose when they thought you'd disappear. Love yourself, the real you." When I finished writing, I folded the letter and placed it inside the same binder that once held 6 years of financial receipts. But now, those papers didn't feel like evidence anymore, they felt like history. Proof of what I overcame. As I looked out the window, the night breeze carried something lighter this time, something like "and the day I stopped apologizing, everything started to change." It wasn't dramatic. No fireworks. No angry calls. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes you realize how peaceful life feels when the wrong people stop talking to you. For months after the housewarming disaster, my phone was quiet. No texts from my sister. No calls from my mother asking me to be the bigger person. And honestly, it felt freeing. I focused on me. I redecorated my small apartment with plants and thrift store finds. Started cooking for myself again. Started sleeping, really sleeping, without that weight pressing on my chest every night. Then, one morning, my phone rang. It was Lana. Her voice cracked before she even said hello. "Ailany, please, can we talk?" There was a tremble there, not anger this time. Something softer. Regret, maybe. I listened as she confessed everything, the jealousy, the lies. How she resented me because I made her feel like she owed me everything, when in truth, I never asked for anything back. And when she said, "I'm sorry," I didn't feel victory. I felt release. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, a cup of tea warming my hands. I realized forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in. It's about letting yourself out of the loop of anger, guilt, and what-ifs. I didn't hate my sister anymore. But I didn't trust her either. And that's okay. Some relationships are meant to be lessons, not lifelong homes. So, I sent her one message before I blocked her number. "I wish you peace, Lana. But you'll have to find it without me." And then, I finally exhaled. My name is Ailany, and I was banned from a housewarming until I apologized. But instead, I revealed every dollar I had given. Every sacrifice. Every truth they tried to hide. In losing my family, I found something else, my freedom. And maybe that's what real revenge is, not in what you destroy, but in what you rebuild. From the ashes they left behind. I built peace. I built self-respect. I built me.